Did you know that the kindest grandparents in tales of hurting gods were once the most feared legends in the world? Before they became disabled elders raising little Qin Mu, each one shook the heavens, until tragedy shattered them completely. Today, we're uncovering the devastating backstories behind every member of Disabled Elderly Village. Hit subscribe because this is going to wreck you emotionally. The Faceless Playboy, Apothecary. Let's start with Apothecary, the Jade Face Poison King whose face was literally destroyed. Picture this: a devastatingly handsome playboy whose poisons could kill armies. Apothecary was dangerous, charming, and broke hearts wherever he went, but his good looks became his curse. He accumulated relationship after relationship, emotional debts that piled up until everything collapsed. Then his traitorous disciple exposed his identity to the world. Once revealed as the Jade Face Poison King, his enemies came for him, and his beautiful, recognizable face became a target. His nose, the skin on his face, half his lips, all sliced off. Whether by his own hand or his enemies, Apothecary went from the most handsome man to the most hideous. Even with too many enemies still hunting him, he couldn't dare show his face again. The shame and fear became his true disability. But here's the beautiful part. Despite his hideous appearance, little Qin Mu always thought Grandpa Apothecary was the nicest person in the village. But speaking of hiding one's true face, there was another elder whose beauty was so dangerous. She had to wear someone else's skin entirely. The heaven-defying beauty, Granny Sai. That hunchbacked old woman with wrinkled skin. That's not Granny Sai's real face, it's a disguise, because underneath is a woman so impossibly beautiful that anyone who sees her true face has their spirit shaken to its core. Granny Sai was once Sai Yu, Saintess of the Heavenly Devil cult. Her master Li Tianxing fell in love with her, divorced his wife of hundreds of years, and forced Sai Yu into marriage. On their wedding night, she killed him. She murdered her master but was cursed with his dying breath. She fled with the cult's scriptures, hunted for 40 years. She wore the skin of an old hunchback not from fear, but because her beauty brought only destruction. Men became obsessed. Chaos followed. While others used beauty as a weapon, Granny C desperately tried to make herself uglier. Yet despite being labeled an evil woman who killed her husband, she was actually the kindest person in the village, the one who risked everything to save baby Qin Mu. Now, if you think being cursed for killing your master is tragic, wait until you hear about the prince who was so obsessed with beauty, not his own but his art, that he lost everything. The fallen crown prince, Deaf. Deaf was the heavenly painting crown prince, the most beautiful, most talented man in his kingdom. Unmatched in painting and calligraphy, blessed with peerless genius. But Deaf made one fatal mistake. He cared more about art than the real world. He declared, "I don't care about worldly matters. I only want to focus on my paintings." While Deaf perfected brushstrokes, the military wolf country invaded. By the time he looked up from his art, it was too late. His kingdom had fallen. His people were slaughtered. His father's head was paraded through the streets like a trophy. His ears were cut off as punishment for not listening when his kingdom needed him most. Deaf's disability wasn't his missing ears. It was the guilt of knowing his artistic obsession cost thousands of lives. You think ignoring reality destroyed one man? Well, there was someone who did the opposite. He stared reality in the face, discovered the truth about the heavens themselves, and it cost him half his body. The Heaven Knife Butcher. Butcher wasn't always rough. Once he was Heaven Knife, a literary genius and invincible warrior whose poems were as legendary as his blade techniques. Then Butcher discovered the truth. He fought his way to the heavens and found that the sky was fake. The sun, moon, stars, all automated formations, toys creating an illusion. The sky was only 3 inches thick. Furious that people worshipped these lies, Butcher tried to shatter them. That's when he met the gods protecting the fake heavens. Heaven Knife fought the gods themselves, and was severed at the waist. His lower body stolen, he crawled through rain and snow with just his upper half, unable to face his comrades' families. He had failed. The world knew Heaven Knife who died in battle, not the crippled survivor who hid in shame. Speaking of losing body parts, while Butcher lost his lower half, the next elder lost something equally precious, but not from fighting gods. No, he lost it because he couldn't stop himself from stealing. The thief god, Cripple. Cripple trained his legs to godly levels. His speed was so incredible people called them divine legs. He became the world's greatest thief god, the man who could never be caught. The problem? He got addicted to stealing. When Cripple went to steal the disc of the Emperor, the Imperial Preceptor discovered him. Even with his divine legs, Cripple lost one leg in battle, but still escaped with the prize. The gods were angered that a mortal dared use God in his title. Even after his leg was reattached years later, Cripple's true disability remained, knowing his addiction had cost him his greatest treasure. But if losing one leg from addiction sounds devastating, imagine losing all your limbs, not from greed, but from carrying the weight of everyone's survival on your shoulders. The Fallen Emperor, Village Chief. Village Chief was the sword god and human emperor, the absolute peak of humanity. Even without limbs, he remained the strongest in the village, but Village Chief died fighting the high heavens from exhaustion. He literally worked himself to death protecting humanity from the gods. The weight of being everyone's shield crushed him completely. His last words? I am a god of war. I will never fall. But he did fall, from exhaustion, from carrying an unbearable burden. His body turned to stone, frozen in a final stand. The greatest warrior reduced to a limbless figure, waiting for the next generation to succeed where he failed. Now, while Village Chief lost everything protecting strangers, the next elder lost everything protecting his own family. Except his protection came too late, and it cost them their lives. The Broken Warrior, Old Ma. Old Ma was Divine Constable Ma, the most famous law officer in the world, a mighty member of the Great Thunderclap Monastery. Then he betrayed the monastery. His enemies didn't just come for him, they came for his family. His wife and child were torn apart, murdered as punishment for his betrayal. Old Ma lost his right arm, but that wasn't his real disability. His true wound was his family's death, knowing his choices led to their deaths. Even when his hands were restored, he couldn't forgive himself. The guilt paralyzed him more than any missing limb. And Old Ma's guilt? It's shared by two more elders whose losses were equally devastating, one who lost his sight, and another who lost his voice. The remaining elders. Blind, the spear god, had his eyes stolen by an enemy named Xing An. He taught Qin Mu to fight while blindfolded, using echolocation to see. But his true disability wasn't blindness, it was the trauma that drove him into hiding. Mute, the divine blacksmith whose tongue was cut out, descended from the heavenly creator. His ancestors built Carefree Village and the Paramita Ark. When the gods sealed all the heavenly workers, Mute escaped, carrying the legacy of a dead civilization, unable to speak of the wonders his people created. Here's the truth about disabled elderly village. These 9 weren't just disabled in body, they were disabled in heart. Village Chief was exhausted from failure. Apothecary had sliced off his face from relationship debts. Granny Sai hid her heaven-defying beauty from a curse. Butcher couldn't face people after being cut in half fighting fake heavens. Cripple lost his divine legs to addiction. Old Ma couldn't forgive himself for his family's death. Deaf carried guilt from his kingdom's destruction. Blind's trauma ran deeper than stolen eyes. Mute bore the weight of lost civilization. But here's what makes this beautiful. These broken, guilt-ridden legends found a crying baby by the riverside, and chose to raise him with blood and sweat. They gave little Qin Mu everything, their techniques, their knowledge, their love, their protection. The kindest family in Tales of Hurting Gods was built from the most tragic people in the world. Because sometimes, the most wounded souls become the most compassionate teachers. Sometimes those who've lost everything have the most to give. Which elder's backstory hit you hardest? Devastated by Death's fallen kingdom? Heartbroken by Old Ma's murdered family? Or wrecked by Granny Sai hiding her beauty for 40 years? Drop your thoughts below. If you loved this, smash that like and subscribe for more Tales of Hurting Gods content. Remember, in Great Ruins there's an ancient saying, don't go outside when it's dark. But sometimes the real darkness isn't outside, it's the pain we carry inside. Until next time.